So the first thing I learned about scaling, I learned that from Clinton Crumpler, who is one of the leading artists in modular design and game design. And I took an interesting class with him about modular design, which was very informative. One of the tricks that he taught us is that a lot of people use a model that has maybe the standard height. It's not really ideal because we are still kind of like detached from it, from that height. Like you could say, okay, so this is the average, and then for me, like I'm taller than the average, so I may make mistakes assuming that it makes sense for that height. So the trick that he taught us was to make the height of this human to be as high as the user, because then you would know if you normally, for instance, if you have a ladder, for instance, right? If you take this human and just kind of put it right there, you would know if it makes sense, if this human would go through that ladder, if there's enough space, right? And you can see here, it's kind of like it's pretty tight. You could almost feel claustrophobic. And also, what if someone is overweight, for instance, right? What if is someone like, just kind of carrying some stuff with them, they get stuck. So it's not really ideal. So this is an indication for me that this needs to be a little bit wider. Of course, it's not ideal to just kind of go and make it wider. There are some assets where it doesn't really make sense to change the dimension. But I think for this asset, it does work without any issues. What I'm saying is that there are certain assets that if you exaggerate, something like this, I would say, if you just go and make it kind of like this way, you would feel that this is kind of weird because it loses its X strength, having those two poles to kind of be this way. But in this case here, it's sort of, it works. And now I feel like, okay, so in terms of the, fitting in, that's good. But in terms of like the height, is it normal for me to be at this height? The answer is probably no, because this, you can see here that this is a little too low where I would need to kind of bend, and this is very unusual. So technically they would probably start the guard area or the guarded area somewhere maybe around here, because even if you fall from this height, it shouldn't be a problem anyways. So yeah, this is a really good example in terms of like after we make the assets, this is a good example of evaluation. And now you get to see the point of like having this human, like I can be very confident that I've never seen an environment like this. But if this human was, something like this, or to be kind of like ideal, if something like this, then I would say, okay, so it probably fits, or maybe for me it's kind of like you would have your questions, but if you have scaled the human to the right scale, then you would have your answers like to be certain.